Alright, so you just generated an amazing looking thumbnail with Viro, but you want to make some tweaks to make it the best it can actually be and make the thumbnail fit your vision. Well, that's all possible and very easy with the built-in editor. I'm going to show you how. So here is a thumbnail that Viro generated for us from our video. And it looks great. Honestly, it does look great, but I want to make some minor changes to bring it to that next level. So all we have to do is hit edit, and it brings us to the editor in another tab. And voila. If you use Photoshop or anything, this should all come super simple to you. But if not, don't worry, I'll guide you throughout the way. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to hide the text layers and the character layer. I just want to see what background it shows. This is usually what I start with. I really like this background. It's actually a really sick background. And I would want to show off the view right here more and the computer screen more. So I'm going to reposition myself, or the character, which is myself. I'm going to bring him to the right side of it. That means I also have to drag this text onto the other side as well. So it's going to be hard for me to select. Here's a little trick. It's going to be hard for me to select these two text elements. So I just hide myself, select them, and then drag them over, right? And there. So what I'm going to do is, I like this layout a lot, okay? But I'm going to remove the text box in the background because I want to see the view a bit more. All I really need is the text itself. So to do that, we're going to access this text box here. We are going to bring the opacity down to 0. I'm going to do the same thing for this one as well. Opacity down to 0. And I want them both to be the same color, to be honest. So I'm going to, let's see, what kind of color is this? Like a sharp red. I'm going to just copy and paste the hex. I mean, I want it a little bit more brighter. I'm going to move it over a tad bit. All I have to do is copy and paste this hex code right here. And then select the other text. And paste it here. Alright, now we have both the text being red. So I'll leave the text for now, and I'll move on to the background. Background looks great, but I feel like it's a bit too bright for the scene. So, and it's a bit distracting, like I can't really see the text as much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this brightness tab and then lower it a bit. Probably going to go pretty low on this one. -50, I think that looks good. Another thing I also like doing, this is me personally, I like going to add, like, go to Effect, Add, Grayscale, and I like turning this up sometimes because when the background is black and white, it gives a really cool effect. In this case, to be honest, there is not much difference since the brightness is like really low. There's not much difference. It's just the wood floor in the background, and I kind of like that wood floor, so I'm gonna keep it. So I'm gonna remove this grayscale effect. So I like the background. Now I'm gonna make sure the character looks great. And it already does look pretty good. The shadow, I'm going to change this so the shadow is even throughout the whole character. It's not, you know, biased towards one side. I think that looks good, though. The black shadow looks good. And I also have a black shadow here. Let me see what it looks like without the shadow, though. I'm going to go 0. And I think I'm going to keep the shadow because it creates a sense of depth. So I'm going to add 10 back. And also to undo as well, all you have to do is click this little arrow button right here, and it undoes it undoes the last step you did. It's looking good. I think the text needs to be a bit bigger, but let me just see. So what I like to do, me personally, I like to do what is called the squint test. Now you can either move back physically or shrink the thumbnail. The way I shrink it is, like if you just use the scroll wheel now, you scroll up and down. To shrink it, all you have to do is hold Control and then use that scroll wheel. As you can see, I went far back. I like to test, can I read the thumbnail from this view right here? And this is like 10% if you guys want to copy the exact view. I can barely read it, I'm not going to lie. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the text a bit bigger. And then instead of trying to zoom in with the scroll wheel again, trying to find the exact fit, just click this drop down and then hit Fit Canvas, and it zooms it in for you. Alright, so we're going to select the text layers, and I'm going to make it 230. The size. And as you can see, the size doesn't really update right away. Like, it makes it a little bit bigger, but the text box is still limiting its size. So what we would have to do is increase the size of the text box too. That looks great. I'm going to also do the same thing on this one. That looks great as well. Now that looks good. I mean, it's a little bit, I want to see what a red glow would look like on this. So shadow, we go down to shadow to add a glow. It's just basically a shadow that's a different color. Choose this, change the color from black to red. Does that look cool? Let's make it a little bit stronger. And no, it doesn't. It makes it a little bit harder to read, so I'm going to leave that off. I think that black shadow is good. Honestly, the text that Viro generated already fits it very well. But I think I want to emphasize the fact that in the video I was balancing building a startup and my college life. So I want to add a big versus piece of text in the middle. And to add anything, whether it's text, image, or anything like that, you want to head over to this sidebar. We're going to choose text because we're adding text. We're going to drag it to where we want it, and then we could enter the content of the text right here. So I'm going to say versus, capital. And I want it like super big and like take up a lot of space because I feel like that would look cool. So I'm just going to look for a font. I'm going to go bold. I'm going to scroll through. I think I have one in mind. I like this one right here. Extra bold, this one right here. This is cool. I'm going to select that one. And obviously, the size is only 20. I want to make this really big, so I'm going to go 350, right? And then still, it doesn't adjust right away. We still have to adjust that text box. We can do that very simply like this. And I want it to be, I want it to take all the space between startup grind and college life. Okay, I like how that looks, honestly. I really like how that looks. I'm going to select myself, make sure my settings are good. Okay, I think the brightness was at a good spot. 20. Let's see. I don't want to overdo it. I will probably go to 34. That looks pretty good. And then the contrast, you don't want to underdo it and you don't want to overdo it. So you want to just find a spot that's like right in the middle. That's just right. I think that looks good. Alright. So what I have so far, I'm really liking, honestly. I really like this look. I'm going to do the test again. So we're going to go zoom out. I think I had 10%. I'm just going to zoom out regularly. There we go. I don't know what that, oh, that's the computer screen back there. The computer screen is a bit distracting, but I don't think it's that big of a problem. And I can read it from here. Startup grind versus college life. I can read it very easily. So, that looks great. Honestly, I'm very proud of it. I think it looks amazing. I think it looks even better than the first result that we got, which is great. And that's the point of the editor. The point of the editor is to bring the thumbnail to the next level and personalize everything. And there's a lot of other features in the editor that I have not went over, such as like adding images. You can add other images to your thumbnails. Like you could either choose a file, or if you click on this, you can click search pixels, which has a big library of a bunch of stock images for you to use. That like comes in handy a ton. And there's a couple more features. For now, I'm just gonna go ahead and hit save. Allow my thumbnail to be saved, and then all we have to do is go back to our previous tab. So here's what Viro generated for us, and in a way this is kind of better. I mean, now that I look at it, it's a lot brighter, which is good generally for YouTube thumbnails. But overall, I like the aesthetic of mine. Maybe it's not optimized for the best CTR or whatever, but that's the point of the editor. Again, my personal touch. So all we have to do is hit refresh, and there's our new thumbnail. And I like this one a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and download it. And there you have it. If you want a personalized, picture-perfect result for your thumbnails, be sure to use the editor after you create your generation.